Okay, guys, I'm afraid I have some bad news for you. You know the joke, if you want to have sex, don't get married? Well, it's unfortunately pretty much true. And it gets worse. According to an analysis of U.S. Census data, 36% of women living with a same-sex romantic partner in their 40s have been married to a man at some point. Among women in their 50s living with another woman, over 50% had left straight married life behind. And this percentage jumps up to a whopping 75% for those aged 60 or older. In other words, as women age, their needs for intimacy shift so dramatically that many of them actually switch teams just to find it. Let that sink in for a moment. Now, the good news, and yes, there actually is some good news here, that you and your partner don't have to suffer this fate. In fact, it is very possible to have your intimate life become better as you mature and grow older together. And the purpose of this particular session is to share how that can be and to avoid the eventuality of an essentially sexless relationship. Now, here's a quote from a fairly well-known celebrity. To be honest, I can take or leave sex, and mostly I'd rather leave it. And this is from the still very hot CBS News correspondent Lee Woodruff in her Ladies' Home Journal article, Let's Talk About Sex and Why I'd Rather Just Go to Sleep. And in a video interview with CBS News chief medical correspondent Dr. John LaPoke, she also shares how her husband of 25 years, Bob Woodruff, also a media journalist, like most men, is ready for action nearly all the time. That sounds familiar, doesn't it? And sometimes she just gives in to perform her quote-unquote wifely duty. Well, how romantic is that? That's like your partner saying, you want sex? Fine. I'll spread my legs. You do your thing. Then let's just get some sleep. Someone please shoot me if my partner and I ever start seeing intimacy as a chore or duty, and yes, men can feel that way too. There's an old expression about couples who get married. The woman hopes her man will change over time, and the man hopes his wife never changes, and unfortunately they both end up disappointed. This was certainly the case with my first marriage, and based upon conversations I've had with others, unfortunately this is a very common theme. The way men and women are in the bedroom is greatly impacted by both biological and cultural wiring, or imprinting as it were, something I call the human sexual operating system, primarily for procreation purposes. In terms of making babies, our wiring is perfect. It couldn't have been designed any better. However, it seems to me that most of us have evolved beyond the imperative to use sex as an exclusively procreative process to an attempt to connect deeply with another human being. It is the conflict between seeking deeper connection and the hardwired imperative for procreation that causes many of the problems that occur for committed couples, especially as they mature over time. In my discussions with many couples, I've made some observations as to why this is. In the early years of the relationship, that most efficient of procreative acts, intercourse, is very exciting and pleasurable to both men and women. Most women during their childbearing years are deeply impacted by let's call it an urge for traditional coupling, meaning intercourse, whether or not they want to have children. And in fact, during this phase, they may actually prefer intercourse over most other forms of physical intimacy. Now, as women mature beyond this period, however, their intimate preferences begin to change. And I'm speaking generally now. This is not 100% of all women, but certainly I would say the majority. Emotional and non-sexual forms of physical intimacy become far more important. Intercourse becomes less attractive to them or even painful, and many begin to prefer other forms of physical intimacy and often require a much, much longer time to, what I call warm up before being ready to climax. The quickie appeals less to them. Many at this stage are also at some level concerned that their man will find them less attractive and have fears of being replaced by a, newer model. Meanwhile, most men prefer to have penetrative sex that they have always enjoyed, no matter how old he and his partner become. And this is where the breakdown starts happening. Women too often are afraid to share with their mate what really works and doesn't for them, out of fear that they may hurt their partner's feelings, or he may even become so angry he'll leave her. So her guy remains absolutely clueless. Remember, men are not mind readers. Disappointed and frustrated as to why his honey just doesn't seem interested anymore. You can see where this is all going. A very sad direction that is taken by too many mature relationships. Once the divide reaches a certain size, both partners are typically unsatisfied with their intimate life. Yet ironically, they both crave deep, abiding intimacy and connection more than ever, but have no idea on how to rekindle it. Now, here are some likely outcomes in this situation. They both just settle because they're comfortable with each other, often leading to a sexless relationship, effectively going from soulmates to roommates. Much like the last 11 years of my first marriage, where we never had sex. They split. The woman either resigns herself to a single sexless existence, because at this point all men are dogs, or she's brave enough to risk seeking the quality of intimacy her heart craves, either in another man or even another woman. The man typically looks for another partner, often younger, with whom he can enjoy sex just like he always did. Men, I find, rarely switch teams for intimacy, just partners. These potential not-so-great outcomes are not fait accompli. It is very possible for long-term couples to have the very best, most exciting and fulfilling physical intimacy of their relationship in their later years together. But it requires a change of behavior and attitudes from both. For this to happen, it is incumbent upon women to authentically and vulnerably communicate with their partner what they really want in terms of intimacy, especially as it changes over time. For men, it's crucial to listen and follow what their mate is telling them, and also to realize that as women age, they take much longer to warm up to physical intimacy than they used to during the let's rip our clothes off stage of the relationship. For example, I spend a good hour of our lovemaking warming up my partner, who happens to be fully postmenopausal, by first showering with her, and I scrub her whole body down with a loofah, something she absolutely loves, and giving her a head-to-toe deep non-sexual massage. Now, we're not massage therapists, but we just kind of listen to each other and listen to each other's body, and we go listen to our intuition and go that way. Now, once she is warmed up this way, and I create what I call a space where both of us can be fully present, she's ready. And boy, is she ready. At this stage of her life, she really doesn't care for pounding intercourse. Well, and that's a good thing because I'm fully impotent. And much prefers gentle oral sex, but not before the warm-up. By my slowing down as a man to match her emotional and sexual needs and response profile, and being fully present without goals or agendas I give to her, she responds by climaxing explosively many, many times. This makes me wonder how different things would be for Lee and Bob Woodruff and countless middle-aged couples like them if they approached their intimate needs in this way. I suspect that she would be reporting on an entirely different experience, excitedly sharing how their current intimate life is far better than it ever was, all because of her willingness to communicate authentically and his willingness to adapt to her changing needs and desires. Here's the thing. We guys have the power to unlock the truly unlimited sexual potential of our women at any age and reap the unbelievable benefits of that. It just requires that we listen and transform our procreative urge from pounding sex to incredibly fulfilling emotional and physical intimacy in the manner our partner prefers. And when this happens, trust me, quote-unquote wifely duty will forever be banished from her vernacular.
Thank you for joining us for another episode of Extraordinary Intimacy with Michael J. Russer. For all speaking, media interviews, and workshop inquiries, go to michaelrusserlive.com. For private intimacy coaching, send an email to coaching@michaelrusserlive.com.